Our lesson today for Chapter 6, Lesson 1 in your MathLinks textbook is on adding fractions with like denominators, which means the same denominator. Remember that the numerator is the number that is on top in a fraction and the denominator is the number that is on the bottom. And we're going to show how to do it using models, pattern blocks specifically, diagrams, and addition statements. We can use pattern blocks to help us estimate equivalent fractions when we're adding or when we're just looking at fractions in general. Remember, the yellow pattern blocks represent the whole, so one piece out of one possible piece. With the red pattern blocks, it takes two of those pieces to make up the whole. So in this fraction that we have here, we have two pieces, 1, 2, out of a possible two pieces that make up the whole. In the blue picture, we have three possible pieces to make up the whole, and we have three of them. And in the green picture, we have 6 possible pieces to make up the whole. Our whole is divided into 6 pieces, and we have 6 of them. So what does this have to do with adding fractions? Well, if we take something like 1/3 plus 1/3, and we want to know what that equals, one thing that we can do to estimate is to look at the third blocks, these ones here, and decide whether it is closer to nothing, to 1/2, or to a whole. If we take those two pieces and put them together like this, are they closer to nothing, to the piece that is a half, or to the pieces that is a whole? When you look at it, it's closer to the piece that is a half. So we can use pattern blocks, at least when we're dealing with these particular denominations, to help us estimate the sum of the fraction. 1/3 plus 1/3 is going to be close to a half. To add the fractions, what we're looking at is just the numerator. Our denominators are the same. They're both over 3, so it's both a third. So we can actually write this as 1 plus 1 over 3. We know what 1 plus 1 is. That's 2. So 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 2/3. And if you count, just basic calculations, there's 1/3, there's 2/3. So this picture represents 2/3. Another way of adding fractions is to use fraction strips. 1/6 plus 1/6, there's 1/6, there's 1/6. We have, when we count, 1, 2, out of a possible 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 2/6. But 2/6 isn't actually lowest terms. Now, the divisibility rules that we were using can help us figure this out. What we're looking for are common factors of 2 and 6. So the factors of 2 are 1 and 2. 1 times 2 is the only thing that equals 2. The factors of 6 are 1 and 6, and 2 and 3. So when we look at this, we can see a common factor of 2. 1, of course, is a common factor as well, but if we divide something by 1, we end up with the same thing. So that's not going to help us find the lowest common fraction. So if we take 2/6 and divide both sides by 2, top and bottom, remember, whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. 6 divided by 2 equals 3. And we have our lowest term. When you are doing your math questions, you must bring it down to the lowest terms all the time. But we can do this using the fraction strip as well. When we redraw the fraction strip so that it only has 3 pieces to it, it still takes up the same amount of space. So we learn that 2/6 is the same as 1/3. Pause and make notes in your math journal. So we've covered 3 different ways of looking at adding fractions when they have the same denominator. One way is through the model, using pattern blocks, or in this case, we have fraction pieces in circles where they've been split up into different circles in our classroom as well. You can model 1/4 plus 2/4 by taking one of the quarter fraction circle pieces and adding 2 more. 1/4 piece plus 2/4 piece equals 3 quarter pieces. So 1/4 plus 2/4 equals 3/4 or 3/4. We figured it out via diagramming by looking at fraction strips and seeing that 1/8 plus 5/8 equals 6/8. Remember, we want to turn this into lowest terms. If we look at this one, 3 and 4 don't have any factors in common, but 6 and 8 can both be divided by 2. We can do this with the fraction strip. And see that our 6/8 is also equal to 3/4. Or we can do it through calculation. 6 divided by 2 equals 3. 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Finally, we can calculate it through an addition statement. They're both over the same denominator, so we have 5 plus 4 over 12, which equals 9/12. Again, we want to check and make sure to see whether this is the lowest terms or not. So we look at the common factors. 9 has factors of 1, 3, and 9. 12 is divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. We can see that they are the highest common factor that they have in common is 3, so we'll divide both the top and the bottom by 3. Whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. 9 divided by 3 equals 3. 12 divided by 3 equals 4. So we see that all of these addition statements show us the same answer, even though we're dealing with different fractions each time. Pause, add this to your notes. Here are the key ideas for this lesson. Fractions represent parts of a whole. The numerator tells you how many parts you actually have. The denominator tells you how many parts make up the whole. When you have 3/4, there are 4 parts that make up the whole, and you only have 3 of them. When you're adding fractions using models, so the physical things, you need to use pieces of the same size or you're not going to get the correct answer. If you're using fraction strips, likewise, you need to make sure that the strips are of equal sizes and your lines that represent the pieces are equally spaced, or you're not going to get the correct answer. And when you're using addition statements, you need to add fractions with the same denominator. When you are adding with like denominators, so the same denominator, you're actually only adding the numerators. The denominator doesn't change. So 4/8 plus 2/8, it's the 4 and the 2 that you're adding, but the answer is still going to be over 8. Finally, you can use models, diagrams, or factors to help you write your answer in lowest terms, but your answer must always be written in lowest terms. And what that means is that the denominator and the numerator cannot be divided anymore by the same number. You are as far down as you can go unless you end up with decimals. And of course, in fractions, we don't have decimals.